This month, as with every month, we have the top stocks that I'm watching, keeping my eye on right now. Let's do it. What's going on, everybody? My name is Matthew. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're talking about two stocks that I'm watching to potentially buy more of very soon. And we're only talking about two today because the other ones I want to talk about have earnings coming up, so I'm gonna wait for those to come out before I make a new video for you guys. Now, before we jump into today's video, the beginning of last month, I did the top stocks for July 2020. Let's take a look at how those stocks performed. Last month, I introduced the ARK Innovation ETF, ticker symbol ARKK, and that's up 17% since I posted the top stocks for July video. I also talked about Facebook, which at the time was under pressure from the boycott Facebook movement. And I told you guys, look, this is not going to have a significant impact on their revenue. I showed you article after article. And of course, Facebook blew their earnings out of the water recently, and it's up almost 11% since posting the top stocks for July video. I talked about MAXR, which is up almost 11% as well, and I talked about Cake, which as of now is only up about 2%, but it had a nice 20% run up hidden inside of there. Now, the two stocks I'm covering today are actually from that list of four that I just went over, and the reason being is because I think these stocks are either still at very attractive prices or will be within the next month. And again, I wanted to cover some new stocks as well, but they have earnings coming up, so I'll get those to you guys soon. Let's get right into it with stock number one, the Cheesecake Factory, ticker symbol CAKE. Now, before you click away and say, oh, this one again, I've seen all the videos, they just had their Q2 earnings report, so we're going to briefly cover some new information there. We're also going to talk about technical analysis for Cheesecake Factory and what I personally think might be a good entry point to grab yourself a slice of cheesecake. So Cheesecake's Q2 earnings were not very well received by Wall Street, dropping about 10% from its pre-earning highs. But I think this drop had less to do with Cheesecake's actual earnings and much more to do with their pre-anticipatory 20% plus earnings run-up. In other words, a lot of stocks in today's market are running up very quickly right before their earnings reports and setting the bar really high, so no matter how good their earnings are, they'll usually end up dropping. Anyways, let's get into the earnings call transcript. Cake saw an increase in off-premise sales in Q2, and this is something we were expecting. But even though we were expecting it, it's nice to have confirmation that Cake is able to stay afloat during these difficult times through curbside delivery, DoorDash, and things like that. The company also doesn't seem worried that some states are closing down restaurants again, saying that even with some states reversing course, our operators have done an extraordinary job. But for the states allowing Cake to keep their restaurants open, let's take a look at how they've performed because it's pretty impressive. Cake was able to recapture nearly 80% of prior year sales levels in their reopened locations, which is insane for two reasons. First, to get back to 80% of prior year sales during the beginning of a recession and during a global lockdown, that in and of itself is incredible. But on top of that, the second reason is that there's a very contagious situation going on, so Cake is only allowed to have 50% restaurant capacity open for business. But despite only opening half of their space in their restaurant, they're able to capture 80% of last year's sales numbers. That's incredible. Now, I don't want to repeat anything from last month's video into this video, so if you want to watch that video, it'll be linked right here. But I do think that this chart deserves another look. This chart shows how the Cheesecake Factory consistently outperforms their restaurant competitors every single year since 2008. Look at 2008 to 2010, the worst of the Great Recession. Look how quickly Cheesecake bounced back, especially compared to other restaurants. With the way things are looking now, especially after those sales numbers we just talked about, I think Cheesecake pulls it off again. I think once we find a solution or some sort of vaccine, Cheesecake will rebound much faster and much harder than their competitors. And before we move on to our second stock, let's take a quick look at Cheesecake's Q2 financials. Financially, I think Cake is in a very strong position. They have dramatically increased their cash on hand while keeping their current and total liabilities at a decent level. In fact, their current liabilities are actually lower than the year end of 2019, and their cash is almost 5 times larger. With $454 million in current assets and $532 million in current liabilities, Cake has a current ratio of about 0.85, which is below our ideal ratio of 1, but this is actually up from Q1 of 2020 when Cake had a current ratio of just 0.53. Now, when should you consider buying? Again, I'm not a financial advisor, this is all for entertainment purposes only, but I figured this might be a cool thing to add to the videos, a little bit of technical analysis. So some members of our Discord community, first link in the description below, pointed out that Cake has a consistent uptrend on their 6-month chart. So this is the 6-month chart for Cake, and as you can see, there's a channel made by these two red lines that I drew. Cake bounces from here, up to here, down to here, up to here, down to here, but the whole trend is upwards. And if you look at this bottom red line, it seems to act as a pretty strong support for Cake's price, bouncing here, and bouncing here. Now, if Cake gets anywhere near this gray box, which would be the next time it would bounce off this red line, that's around $22, and that's when I would consider buying. But I would want to wait for confirmation and validation, showing that Cake bounces off this red line. I'm not going to buy once it touches the red line. I'm going to wait for it to bounce off with a couple of green days. But again, that's just me. And if you're wondering, Matt, I thought you were a long-term investor. I am, but technical analysis can sometimes get you a much better entry point for a long-term position. If you like the technical analysis, comment down below, let me know. Make sure to hit that like button so I can see, oh, there's a lot of likes. They must like the technical analysis. And we'll move on to our next stock. Stock number 2 is MAXR Technologies, ticker symbol MAXR. Like I said, both of these stocks in today's video are from last month because I think they're still attractive. Since this stock is a bit more obscure, I'm going to do a brief recap of July's video, then we'll add some new information. MAXR Technologies is an aerospace and defense company leading in Earth intelligence and space infrastructure. What's most appealing about this stock to me is the comeback story and the fact that it's a pure play on space. And if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I think space is the next big industry and that the first trillionaire will come from the space industry. But there aren't many pure plays on space in the stock market. Yes, I'm invested in Virgin Galactic. I'll link one of my 2 videos on it right here. MAXR specializes in satellite technology, which they use for Earth observation, communications, radar, and aerospace defense uses like military simulations. Because their satellites have such a wide variety of uses, MAXR has a wide variety of customers, like US government agencies such as NASA, the Army, and the Air Force, to whom MAXR provides geospatial intelligence that is apparently vital for successful missions. MAXR also serves the titans of industry and business like Google, General Motors, and Amazon for services like 5G integration and the Internet of Things. In the July video, we talked about MAXR's upcoming acquisition of Vricon. Well, that happened, and I think it's very exciting for MAXR for a few reasons. Vricon is another Earth visualization company that provides some of the most accurate 3D modeling of the world through satellites. It will bolster MAXR's service offerings for both the military/government users as well as the commercial clients. For the former, faster, better, and more accurate 3D modeling is crucial for missions, recon, and simulations. For the former, MAXR can do things like provide 3D modeling for 5G infrastructure buildouts and also provide maps that are very detailed for fully autonomous driving. And lastly, the acquisition of Vricon should pretty much add no debt to MAXR's balance sheet, which is fantastic, and Vricon should become a revenue-generating machine to help MAXR's balance sheet come back to health. But I already talked about all this, let's talk about some new stuff. First, MAXR just renewed 4 multi-million-dollar international defense and intelligence contracts, and upon renewing the existing 4, expanded a 5th contract in Q2 of 2020. Together, these contracts are valued at more than $120 million. Now, this isn't huge news because MAXR's revenue is in the billions, and this is only like $120 million, but it's great to see the forward progress and momentum. The second new thing is that, as of now, these companies and these governments are paying big bucks for MAXR's satellite imagery, but MAXR hasn't even launched Worldview Legion yet. What's Worldview Legion, you ask? What a great question. As of now, MAXR's satellites will typically capture an area around 2 times per day. In other words, the satellites go around the globe and they'll typically view or observe the same spot around twice a day. This means that there are many hours, practically half a day, between the first and the second time that the MAXR satellites views a certain area on the world. This could be limiting in many use cases for MAXR satellites. For example, if the military sees increased suspicious activity at a foreign base, well, if it got one photo of the base in the morning, but we have to wait another 12 hours for an updated photo of the same base, this suspicious group can do a lot in 12 hours that we have no eyes on. Launching in 2020, the Worldview Legion, a project in collaboration with Raytheon and SpaceX, will release a fleet of new MAXR satellites that will cover some areas up to 15 times per day, and also triple MAXR's high-definition satellite capacity. And more frequent coverage isn't just beneficial to the military. It can help with tracking and responding to natural disasters, improve real-time autonomous driving maps, and much, much more. Having coverage of up to 15 times per day for certain areas dramatically increases the number of use cases for MAXR satellites. As we talked about in the last video, their financials today aren't great, but they do have a plan to turn things around that focuses on delevering and reducing their debt and increasing their top line growth, and so far it's going great. Finally, at the time of recording, MAXR has an attractive PE of just 10 compared to its competitors like Lockheed Martin, which have a PE of 16.6, and the Northrop Grumman Northrop Grumman or Grumman Corp with a PE of 22.8. By the time this video comes out, or by the time you're watching it, MAXR may have already reported their Q2 earnings, which presumably made a big difference in the stock price. Now, whether this made the price go up or down, long term, unless there's a wild change to the overall business strategy, I like MAXR. I'm very confident in their comeback story. But again, like so many stocks this earnings season, MAXR has had a huge run up to earnings, so don't be surprised if there's a big move either way. And one last thing is that if you are thinking about getting into MAXR, just make sure you do a lot of your own due diligence, because this is not a stock for people who don't have a lot of conviction, because it is extremely volatile. Let me just show you. This is the 6-month chart for MAXR, and just like cake, it follows an uptrend in a channel. So I drew these two lines, and you can see there's support, resistance. But this right here is whenever I released my first video talking about MAXR, and the next day it shot up like 9%. But if you didn't have conviction, then holding on from the top to the bottom, which as you can see is 21% drop, that would have been really hard. But I had conviction, so I actually bought right here at about $15, and I was able to ride it back up, and now it's up 30%. So guys, I'm not trying to, show off or impress you, but I'm just saying, if you don't have conviction on this stock, it is a hard one to hold on to. So if you're thinking about getting in, just do a lot of research, and you should do that with all your stocks anyway. So if you found any value in that video, and I hope you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and read our quote of the day. You might just learn something. Make sure to follow me on Instagram for daily updates on my portfolio, stocks I'm watching, and all that good stuff. And if you're still watching to this point in the video, you are the real MVP. Thank you so much. Don't forget your peace and thank yous.